Taste is subjective. We all need to accept that what we might like might not be liked by other people. It's why, for example, my chocolate Marmite jalapeno pizza sauce wraps are the most detested lunch in the office at the moment. Yet we all seem to come together on a few things, and it seems that the universal hatred of certain movie moments is right up there alongside people who eat with their mouths open and those who toe punt dogs. Not cool. Yet, as per usual, I would like to play devil's advocate for a moment and look at some of these despised cinematic sections and ask, are they really that bad? Now, the obvious answer is yes, Jules, they are, but just for a bit of fun, let's open up the floor to some stinkers and try to defend them. With this in mind, I'm Jules from Whatculture.com, and these are 8 hated movie moments that aren't as bad as you think. Number 8, The Literal Rat, The Departed. Martin Scorsese's Oscar winner movie ends with just about everybody dead. Martin Sheen's been thrown off a roof, Jack Nicholson's been shot, Leonardo DiCaprio's been shot, Ray Winstone's been... okay, actually, most of them have been shot. It looks like mob rat Matt Damon has got away with it until he returns home and is, you guessed it, shot by Mark Wahlberg. It ties the film up rather nicely. And then a rat runs along the window, and I mean, okay, cool, we get it. I mean, he was a rat, that really wasn't needed. But what if it's not just a one-note deal? What if instead of the bulldozer of a message being about Damon, that it's actually about government corruption? The flat that he's in overlooks the State House, so maybe it's less about the man and more about the man. I mean, it's still less subtle than the clues your mum gives me when she wants to bang, there's my one per list, but now it's at least slightly deeper. Number 7, The Senate, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Despite Jar Jar and a yippee-ing Darth Vader, people had a lot of problems with the prequels, and many of them centered around the Senate and how a boring discussion about space politics was, like I said, boring. However, and I really hate myself for saying this information kind of had to happen like this. We had to see the formation of the Empire, we had to see the formation of the Emperor and his trusty right-hand burnt bacon man. Now, you could argue that this could have been told much better, and yes, I will obviously agree, but if Lucas had been vague about all of this, then fans would have demanded to know how it all came to be, and then we might have ended up with a prequel of the prequel, which might have explored how Jar Jar actually inspired Jango Fett to become a bounty hunter or some such. No thank you. Number 6, Itsy Bitsy Spider, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 had its issues. It was mostly enjoyable, and it's certainly not the worst Spider-Man moment we've seen on our screens, but it had things like the Green Goblin disease, Gwen Stacy's slapstick head, and a moment that was derided by many, Electro playing Itsy Bitsy Spider on electrical pylons. However, when you look at it, that's one of the most inventive parts of the movie. So much of this film is by the book superheroing, mixed with teen comedy banter, and so this musical beat sticks in the mind, showing Electro using his powers for something unique. Sure, it's utterly cheesy, but the jokey way that Peter responds to it with, I hate this song, means that it's all played for laughs, and that, for all of its corniness, is what Spider-Man is all about. Number 5, Singing Dwarfs, The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey. The Hobbit is an epic adventure that takes 45 minutes to begin its epic adventure. I don't really like this trilogy, in case you couldn't tell. Just nothing gets going for ages, and what we do get is a fair amount of dwarf singings. But wait, when you actually listen to it, it actually does help the film a fair bit. Blunt the Knives helps create the sense that these dwarves aren't the cream of the crop warriors like the Fellowship were, while the Misty Mountains is essentially in building the film's recurring musical motif. Take them out and the characters are actually lesser for it, which is bad when you consider that they had 9 hours or so to make them decent outside of a ditty. Number 4, Quoting Lines, The Expendables 2. The Expendables 2 was pretty much the same as The Expendables, except this time it seemed to understand that it wasn't meant to take itself seriously. And that seemed to narc a lot of people off. Maybe it was the barrage of cheesy one-liners and nods to the audience which was the straw that broke the muscly camel's back. But I mean, is that so bad though? The one thing that people really wanted to see in The Expendables was their beloved 80s heroes saying and doing things that they did in their heyday, but with more wrinkles. Yet, like I said, this seemed to be the thing that people hated the most in this film. Go figure. Number 3, Ripley's Chestburster, Alien 3. Alien 3 is, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh yeah, dog. It's just so drab and plodding with such a messy script that you can imagine the crayon marks on it. It does have one genuinely novel idea though, that Ripley is impregnated with an alien queen. When the company arrives to try and take the xenomorph for their own evil deeds, she just throws herself into molten metal just as the alien bursts out of her chest. The xenomorph bursting out just before her death did not sit well with many fans, with the 2003 assembly cut removing any evidence of the chestburster. However, there's something a lot more visually satisfying about the Queen bursting out of Ripley and her caressing it as they both descend to their deaths than the ending presented in the assembly cut. Plus, I mean, given that the movie kills off 3 of the survivors from the previous one, there's a whole lot more worth getting angry over. Number 2. Multiple endings. The Lord of the Rings: Return of the King. These multiple endings are one of the most frequent complaints about Return of the King. There are 6 fake-outs before the credits finally roll, but such grumblings do seem to be missing out the point of the whole trilogy quite a bit. It's an epic 3-part journey with countless character arcs that need to be resolved. Had any of these scenes been cut, people would have complained that it ended too abruptly. In the book, the destruction of Sauron isn't even the end of the fight. There's the whole scouring of the Shire chapter to deal with. So if anything, this cuts stuff out and ties things up as best it can. Still, I can see the complaints about this, seeing as I was and still am one of these people, but as we've already discerned, I'm an awful human being. And number 1, Trevor Slattery, Iron Man 3. Say it with me, kids, come on now. My name is Trevor! I love this moment. Absolutely love it. I adore the way it annoyed so many people in the cinema, and I just laughed all the way through, realizing that it pissed on a great Iron Man character, but was just so silly that you can't help but be amused by it. That said, I do understand why fans were pissed. However, let's be honest, unless you've got a massive bonk-on for the Mandarin before the film starts, can't we all just see the funny side of it? Just about everyone in the world was duped by Marvel's bait and switch, and when taking on its own merits, it's absolutely hilarious. Kingsley does such a good job in both sides of the role, and it sees Tony Stark finally go on an adventure that isn't as by the numbers as his first 2 outings. And if you're still reeling from the reveal, the Marvel one-shot All Hail the King reveals that there's actually a real Mandarin out there who's not best pleased with Trevor, so there's no need to be too wound up.